Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine walking into a casino, not really thinking about gambling your way to wealth, but using that whole scene to build an empire. That's basically the story of Steve Wynn. He wasn't just playing the game people thought he was playing. He was engineering desire itself, crafting, a multi-billion-dollar reality from what most of us just see as, well, chance.
Right. It's a fascinating paradox.
From the Mirage, I mean, everyone knows the Mirage, to the Bellagio.
Yeah.
And not just Vegas, right? All the way to Macau. Steve Wynn didn't just put up buildings. He created these entire worlds, designed meticulously to pull you in, captivate you, keep you there. It's pretty amazing, turning that into a $3.9 billion legacy.
And what's so fascinating here, I think, is how Wynn redefined luxury, risk, even power. Right. Not by being the best gambler, no, but by designing the game itself, every little detail.
That's what we're diving into.
Exactly. We're exploring the mind, the methods of someone who just understood human emotion on a level that made spreadsheets seem, well, almost irrelevant.
So what does this mean for you listening? We think you'll find principles here that go way beyond the casino floor. It touches on how we interact with products, with services, maybe even the rooms we're sitting in right now. You might get some aha moments about how perception and design really shape things.
It's subtle stuff.
Okay, so let's start with this core financial idea. Wynn basically said, people want to feel rich, even before they are. That wasn't just a clever quote, was it?
No, not at all. That was the foundation, the absolute bedrock for everything he built. He truly believed feeling was the real currency driving people.
And that started early, before the big Vegas projects?
Oh, yeah, way back. To really get it, you have to picture him, not in Vegas, but in New Haven, Connecticut. His dad passes away suddenly in '63. Steve's just 21. He actually drops out of Yale Law, puts it on hold. Why? To take over his father's bingo business, which was drowning in debt.
Wow, from Yale Law to a bingo hall.
Right. And he had zero formal business training. No MBA, no grand plan, just instinct. But here's the key. Instead of just staring at the debt, he looked at the people. He focused on how they felt being there. So what did he do? He upgraded the seats, made the lighting softer, more inviting, added some background music. Little things.
Small changes, but with a purpose.
Exactly. He wasn't trying to change the game of bingo. He was trying to change the feeling of playing bingo, making people feel, a bit more special, maybe a bit more affluent, just by being in that room. And it worked. The place thrived, not because the odds changed, but because people paid for the feeling of being someone who could afford a pleasant night out.
Okay, that's fascinating on a small scale. But how does that bingo hall insight translate to something enormous, like building the Bellagio in '98? That's a giant universe.
It is, but the core principle scaled beautifully. The Bellagio, it wasn't just a bigger bingo hall, obviously. It was that feeling amplified 1,000 times. It cost $1.6 billion, which back then was just astronomical, most expensive casino ever built. Critics immediately said, this is reckless, this is crazy.
I can imagine.
But here's the ticker, right? It made all that money back in just 3 years.
3 years.
Ow.
Because people weren't just showing up hoping to hit a jackpot. They were coming to feel like winners the moment they walked in. They were buying into the whole opulent dream, that feeling of aspiration. Whether they won or lost at the tables was almost secondary to the experience itself.
That's a really powerful distinction. It wasn't about the odds. It was about the feeling of aspiration. What does that say about us? About how we spend money? Well, it shows Wynn understood something deep. Money isn't purely logical. It's tied to emotion. We spend based on how we want to feel. We're not always rational actors looking for the best deal. We're often chasing a feeling, a sense of self. Wynn was just a master curator of those emotional realities. He designed the whole environment where the game happened.
It's interesting you say that because Wynn himself, he didn't really talk like a typical casino owner, did he?
Yeah.
He saw himself more like an artist. With the resort as his canvas.
Absolutely. That shift in self-perception was key. Most operators were thinking, how many slots per square foot? Wynn was thinking, what's the emotional journey here?
And that really came through with the Mirage in '89.
Oh, the Mirage was the game changer, pivotal moment. It wasn't just another hotel. It was huge, $630 million, the first real mega casino. And crucially, the first one on the Strip, funded by Wall Street. His big idea. Fuse entertainment, design, luxury, make it seamless. Think about the elements. The volcano erupting outside every night. Right. A rainforest in the lobby. White tigers, waterfalls. It was sensory overload, but curated. Of course, the critics laughed at first.
What did they say?
One analyst famously called it an amusement park for adults with no business model. Investors were genuinely sweating. But then, the first year, over $600 million in revenue just blew everyone away.
Okay, so if it wasn't a business model they recognized, why did it work so spectacularly?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or the $600 million question. Wynn realized people didn't just want a place to gamble anymore. They wanted an escape. They wanted to be transported, to feel wonder. The Mirage gave them that fantasy, and it became a destination itself, not just a casino.
So the Mirage wasn't just luck. He clearly knew he was onto something. He kept pushing this idea.
Oh, absolutely. He didn't stop. Treasure Island followed in '93. Then the Bellagio in '98, taking it even further. I mean, with Bellagio, he put a fine art gallery inside. Picasso, Monet, Van Gogh, right there off the casino floor.
Which sounds crazy, but for him?
For him, it was strategy, pure win. It wasn't just flair. He believed people came to be transformed, to experience a different world, even for a short time. The art elevated the whole experience, reinforced that feeling of exclusivity and culture.
I remember Wynn saying something like, "Casinos were never enough for me. I build dreams." Sounds poetic, but you're saying it was literal, tactical.
Exactly right. It wasn't fluffy talk. It was his actual blueprint. He designed craving. He engineered anticipation. He choreographed prestige. The money just followed because people happily paid for the feeling, for the experience he built. If you connect this to the bigger picture, Wynn basically reinvented why people came to Vegas. He proved that if you treat a business like art, like a total sensory immersion, people pay for the feeling of being part of something beautiful.
It's kind of wild, though, for someone building these huge grand visions, how obsessed Wynn was with tiny details, like really tiny details.
Oh, completely obsessed. It wasn't just standard CEO oversight. This was granular, hands-on. People who worked with him tell stories, like him driving around the properties late at night, headlights off, just watching the lighting.
Floodlights off, seriously.
Yep, just observing. Or sitting silently in a lobby, not talking, just listening to the sound, the acoustics. He'd walk the floors for hours watching guests. Where do they pause? Where do they smile? Where do they hesitate? And if something felt off, he'd make changes, boom, right away. He understood luxury wasn't just shiny surfaces. It was precision. All those invisible things that make you feel subconsciously comfortable, like
you belong there.
Exactly, that feeling of, I belong here. At Wynn Las Vegas, they supposedly tracked over 1,500 specific control points. Things like humidity levels, the exact thread count of napkins.
Thread count? Really?
Yes, not because you'd consciously notice the napkin thread count, but because your nervous system does. All these tiny inputs create an overall feeling of well-being, of quality.
Someone who worked for him said, he doesn't design buildings, he designs reactions. That really captures it, doesn't it? What kind of reports was he even getting?
Well, that quote is perfect, and it leads right into what we're calling his panorama discipline. It's this ability to see the whole massive picture, the entire resort, the brand, while simultaneously focusing on every tiny detail, every pixel. He wasn't just looking at room occupancy. He wanted reports on, like, scent performance in different zones, the specific Kelvin temperature of the lighting, even analyzing guest posture, where people relaxed or tense in certain areas.
Wow. Guest posture analytics.
Right. If people looked uncomfortable, he wanted to know why and fix the environment. It makes you think, how does this apply to your work? That kind of excellence often comes from that invisible discipline, not just the big, flashy stuff. Wynn just mastered making you feel like it was all designed personally for you, even if you had no idea why you felt so good.
Wynn definitely saw himself as shaping the whole industry, not just competing in it. He started by asking this really fundamental question: why would someone even want to come here?
And that question changed everything. He wasn't content playing the game as it existed. He wanted to rewrite the rules. You have to remember what Vegas was like in the early 90s. It was mostly about gambling, maybe bachelor parties, budget trips, often loud, kind of chaotic, very transactional.
Get in, gamble, get out.
Pretty much. But Wynn imagined something else. High culture meets high stakes. That vision really came alive with Wynn Las Vegas in 2005 and then Encore in 2008. These places felt different. Museum-grade art, stunning floral displays everywhere, architecture that felt elegant, almost serene. It whispered wealth instead of shouting it. And guess what? The customer base shifted. Fewer tourists just looking for cheap fun, more of what he called titans of industry.
So by controlling the physical space, he controlled the psychological space.
Yeah.
He changed who felt comfortable there. He once said, I don't just want guests, I want believers.
Exactly. And that belief wasn't earned through free drinks. It was earned the moment you stepped inside that environment he'd created. Everything felt intentional, elevated. You felt like you were part of something exclusive.
So this is what you're calling the playground principle.
Yeah, think of it like this. Most people try to win at a game someone else set up. Wynn built his own playground. With his own rules, his own atmosphere, then he invited people in. When you own the environment, you shape the experience, you shape the choices. It shows that real influence isn't just about having the most chips, it's about owning the table itself. He changed the game entirely.
And this ties into his idea about power, right? He thought real power wasn't about directly controlling people, it was about managing the context. The environment does the work.
Precisely. He believed environmental design was the ultimate form of influence. Create the right space, and people naturally behave in the ways you want, often unconsciously.
How did that play out specifically, like in the Bellagio?
Bellagio's a masterclass. Notice anything missing there? Clocks, windows looking outside.
Huh. Now that you mention it. No?
Not an accident. It's intentional. It disrupts your sense of time, what psychologists might call temporal dissociation. You lose track of hours. What happens? You stay longer. You spend more. You feel less rushed. The environment is designed to absorb you. Even the carpets have subtle patterns. Curves that subconsciously guide your feet, keep you moving through the space. They use specific scents, scientifically chosen, to promote calm or excitement in different areas. The lighting subtly shifts with the time of day, mimicking natural rhythms but keeping energy levels up. Background music changes mood.
It's like a whole invisible system running.
It is a sophisticated behavioral system disguised as luxury design. And the proof is in the numbers. At Bellagio, something like 70% of the gaming revenue comes from guests who stay longer than 8 hours. That's a design outcome.
So this leads to the environment of influence model. Sustainable power comes from pulling people in with the space itself, using soft power.
Right. It reminds me of what one of his designers reportedly said. Sid doesn't ask how to get people to gamble. He asks what kind of room makes people feel like they're already winning.
That flips the whole script.
It really does. And that's the core lesson. Trying to directly control people often creates resistance. But control the system, the light, the sound, the space, the smell, and you subtly guide everything else. He didn't control people, he controlled the room did the work.
Steve Wynn reached this incredible peak. His name was literally synonymous with Vegas luxury plastered on skylines. But then in early 2018, everything changed dramatically.
It did. The sexual misconduct allegations hit hard and fast. It sent absolute shockwaves through the business world and obviously personally for him.
What was the immediate fallout?
Immediate and severe. Within weeks, he had stepped down as CEO and chairman of Wynn Resorts, the company he literally built from the ground up. The stock price just plummeted like 20% almost overnight. Billions in value, gone. And Wynn himself, while denying the allegations, ended up selling his entire stake worth over $2 billion. A really stunning public fall from grace.
It seemed like the end of the Wynn era. But the fascinating part, the really interesting thing, is what happened next. Or rather, what didn't happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Because despite this massive, devastating blow to the founder, the system he built, it survived.
It just kept going.
It really did. Wynn Resorts didn't crumble. They actually kept expanding. Encore Boston Harbor opened in 2019, got great reviews. Macau and Wynn Palace kept performing strongly. Why? Because the buildings, the operational systems, that obsessive focus on quality and detail, he drilled into the culture that all remained. It's what we're calling the legacy lattice.
Explain that legacy lattice idea.
It's the idea that he built structures, physical, operational, cultural attitudes that were strong enough to hold their shape and function even after he, the central figure, was removed. That's incredibly rare, especially in industries so tied to big personalities. It shows the strength wasn't just him. It was embedded in the design of the organization itself. And, his personal wealth, his massive art collection, his influence elsewhere, that largely endured too.
So the lesson here for you listening is it feels like it's about the difference between personality and system. Reputation can be fragile. Titles disappear.
Absolutely.
But if you build something based on genuine excellence, on systems, on a culture that outlasts you, it can survive incredible storms. That's a powerful takeaway for building anything, really.
It really is. Wynn's core ideas that emotional logic, the architectural discipline, the environmental obsession, they're still running the show in those buildings, still defining luxury.
Yeah.
It speaks to durability, not just invincibility. In Wynn's world, maybe the house always wins because, well, the house remembers the blueprint.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. If there's one big idea to take away from this deep dive, maybe it's this. Steve Wynn didn't just win because he was a better gambler or businessman in the traditional sense. He won because he changed the entire meaning of the game. He built these worlds where spending money wasn't the point. The point was surrendering to an experience, right? That feeling of luxury, of belonging, of being special, that was the real jackpot he offered.
That's it perfectly. He understood, maybe better than anyone, that emotion is the real currency. Not the chips, not the cards, not even the billion-dollar chandeliers, but how people feel inside a space he created.
Now, obviously, his empire wasn't perfect. It cracked. He fell.
Yeah, the personal story took a hard turn. But what's fascinating is that the ideas behind it all, orchestrating emotion, controlling environments, building for legacy, those things are still standing. You can almost see them, feel them in every detail of those places. Every fountain show, every perfectly lit corridor, every room where time just seems to dissolve.
So it makes you wonder, if perception is that powerful, if it can literally build realities like Wynn's, how much of your own world are you consciously designing? What feeling are you creating in your work, your home, the legacy you're building? Are you playing someone else's game or designing your own?
What if that real jackpot, the big win, was never actually on the gaming table? What if it was woven into the carpet, reflected in the glass, humming in the air of the room itself? Maybe real power isn't about pushing people around. Maybe it's about crafting the space where choices just naturally unfold. Wynn didn't gamble his way to billions. He designed the feeling of winning, and the world lined up to pay for it.
So maybe take a step back. Think about it.
What are you designing? Your environment, your career path, your impact. Because, like it or not, we're all moving through spaces someone else designed until we consciously decide to build our own. If any of this resonated, if it gave you a new way to think about wealth or design or influence, we'd love to hear what hit you the hardest. Because sometimes the biggest secrets aren't shouted, they're just designed to be felt.